Let's dive right into this explainer on the DENZA Z. We are talking about a 173,000-pound Chinese electric hypercar that is making an absolutely massive claim. It's billing itself as a true Bugatti killer. Now, you know and I know, the claims like that get thrown around constantly in the automotive world. But today, we're actually digging into the hard evidence to see if this electric behemoth lives up to that monumental hype. Because this isn't just another fast EV. It's a machine that pushes the absolute boundaries of physics and, well, as we're going to see, it also pushes the limits of pre-production software.
Okay, 1,600 horsepower. Just let that sink in for a second. That number alone is completely staggering. But what makes this car truly wild is exactly how you access all that power. You don't need to dig through 5 different touchscreen submenus, and you definitely don't have to wait around for the battery to precondition for half an hour. That world-bending amount of power is available immediately. You just press a single physical boost button right there on the steering wheel. You hit it, pin your left foot firmly on the brake, floor the throttle, and just brace yourself for an entirely uncompromising launch sequence.
So, what actually happens when you let off that brake? Well, on a slightly bumpy runway, using standard road tires, not custom track slicks, mind you, the numbers are insane. 0 to 60 vanishes in just 2.42 seconds. It absolutely obliterates the quarter mile in 9.5 seconds, but the really crazy part is the half mile, under 15 seconds at almost 187 miles per hour. When you launch, the sheer violent force pitches the front of the car aggressively upwards, kind of like a speedboat catching a massive wave. DENZA claims it can go even faster on a perfect surface, but honestly, even in imperfect conditions, this launch will literally steal your breath.
To figure out if it really lives up to all that straight-line hype, we're going to rapidly run through its raw performance, some bizarre tech quirks, a massive battery catch, its track handling, and of course, our final verdict.
All right, Section 1. Raw performance. We're talking physical forces and literal party tricks. To really wrap our heads around what 1,600 horsepower feels like, we have to talk about how the human body reacts to it. Off the line, this thing pulls roughly 1.3 Gs of acceleration. This sets up a hilarious party trick that totally reminds me of the legendary Carroll Shelby test. Imagine taping a 10-pound note to the dashboard and telling your passenger, maybe your freelance cameraman, that if they can lean forward and grab the cash within 5 seconds of accelerating, you'll double their fee for the day. If they fail, they work for free. The reality? When that tidal wave of torque hits, the immense force instantly pins their body deep into the seat. They physically cannot pull their torso forward to reach the dash. It's just an unbelievable demonstration of brute force.
But obviously, what goes that incredibly fast has to eventually stop. Safely halting a heavy electric vehicle from 60 miles per hour in a mere 34 meters is a massive engineering feat. Why does it need that much stopping power? Well, because this car is lugging around thousands of pounds of heavy batteries and electric motors. It's fighting a monstrous amount of kinetic energy every single time you hit that brake pedal. To handle it, the car relies on these massive 410mm carbon ceramic brake discs clamped by 6-piston calipers up front. So yeah, it sheds speed almost as violently as it gains it.
Moving right along to Section 2, Tech and Curbed Wheels, where futuristic ideas meet some very real-world limits. Since this car is essentially a supercomputer on wheels, the tech inside is wildly ambitious. Take the insanely unique self-parking system, for example. Instead of turning a steering wheel, you're basically swiping on a giant smartphone to rotate a 2-ton vehicle on its axis. You pull up this digital compass on the infotainment screen, draw a rotation direction, hit start, and let the electric motors literally spin the car on the spot directly into a parallel space. I mean, it genuinely feels a lot more like operating a sci-fi spacecraft than driving a normal car. However, being an early adopter of a sci-fi spacecraft comes with a few massive caveats. Because the software is pre-production, it's currently missing some basic spatial safeguards during these futuristic maneuvers, which means if you rotate that digital compass just a tiny bit too far, the car will happily and blindly grind its gorgeous, ultra-expensive 21-inch racing wheels right into a concrete curb, or a brick wall for that matter, without sounding a single warning chime. It's beautifully absurd, right? You've got a $173,000 hypercar willingly destroying its own wheels because of a beta software oversight. It perfectly highlights the absolute peril of being a high-paying beta tester.
And really, the entire car is just this bizarre study in contrasts. On the one hand, you get stunning real carbon fiber detailing, beautiful Alcantara sports seats, rock-solid build quality, and even the pure novelty of playing music out of external speakers to soundtrack a tailgate or a barbecue. But then you hit the frustrating lows. You're stuck with a tiny 250-liter boot, There is zero front trunk space because that whole area is eaten up by massive cooling fans. And then there's the indicator. The turn signal bizarrely sounds exactly like an angry wasp trapped inside your dashboard. It is so jarring to sit in this ultra-luxury, serene environment, only to have the vibe totally ruined by the sound of an aggressive insect every time you switch lanes.
Which brings us to Section 3, the battery catch. Because massive power demands massive energy.
You know, every superhero has a weakness, and for the DENZA, it's the number 76. That's the surprisingly average 76 kilowatt-hour capacity of its battery pack. Now you're probably wondering why on earth a 1,600 horsepower hypercar has such a relatively small battery. The answer is simple physics: weight saving. If they shoved a massive battery in there to give it endless range, the car would weigh well over 3 tons, which would entirely ruin its handling and dynamics. So because of that necessary compromise, that 76 kilowatt-hour pack only yields a pretty limited 250 miles of normal everyday driving range. But it gets even more shocking when you actually push the car to its limits. If you decide to unleash that full 1,600 horsepower continuously, like doing top-speed runway runs or really aggressive track driving, that entire battery will drain from 100% to 0 in just 6 minutes. Literally 6 minutes. Imagine taking your $250,000 track toy to a premier racing circuit, putting your helmet on, unleashing its full potential, and having to pack up and go home before your tires are even fully warm. The energy draw at peak performance is just astronomical.
Now, on the flip side, the car can theoretically charge as violently as it drains, adding 150 miles of range in a mere 5 minutes. But there's a huge catch here, too. You can only hit that blazing speed if you can find a 1,500 kilowatt flash charger. Good luck finding one of those in the wild right now. So while the capability to pump energy back into the car at lightning speed exists on paper, out in the real world, you are entirely at the mercy of a public infrastructure that just hasn't caught up to the car's bleeding-edge tech.
Okay, Section 4, track reality. Does this thing actually handle corners?
Let's see what happens when we throw a heavy electric rocket ship into a twisty circuit. Mechanically, the foundation is solid, the suspension is heavy but compliant, and the electric power steering actually gives you an excellent responsive feel. But the whole track experience is totally ruined by the software. Think about why EVs are fun on a track. It's the instant, immediate torque, right? Well, this car has a massive, highly frustrating software-induced throttle delay when you press the pedal coming out of a corner. It literally feels like old-school terrible turbo lag, which makes zero sense for an EV. Combine that bizarre delay with an intrusive traction control system that aggressively cuts power and refuses to let the rear end slip, and the car just won't let you play. It constantly fights your inputs. You end up feeling more like a captive passenger than a driver in control.
And that leads us to Section 5, the final verdict. Where should you actually put your money?
When you factor in the mind-bending straight-line speed, the quirky tech, the severe battery limits, and that incredibly frustrating track handling, is this car actually worth your hard-earned cash? Honestly, it comes down to what kind of driver you are. If you want a supercomputer on wheels that prioritizes crazy party tricks, a luxurious interior, and unmatched brutal straight-line dominance, the DENZA is a fascinating toy. But if you want an involving analog scalpel built purely for the joy of cornering, a car that connects you to the road and dances on the edge of grip, you are absolutely better off taking that exact same 173,000 pounds and buying a gently used manual transmission Porsche 911 GT3.
So, I'll leave you with this. Do you want the bleeding edge of electric propulsion, bugs, party tricks, and all? Or do you want the dialed-in, mechanical perfection of a dying analog era? Ultimately, the question isn't just about which car is faster in a straight line. It's about what you actually want the future of driving to feel like. Think about that, and we'll see you in the next explainer.